The pattern said this was for any skill level, but we're really testing that today. They might have overestimated my ability to follow basic instructions. So I am currently in dire need of some battle armor. The reason being is because as an adult who needs to take up more hobbies to make friends, I have decided to start LARPing, which LARPing stands for live action roleplay, which means essentially I am signing up for a game of pretend with other adults. Or think D&D, but instead of being around a table and rolling dice, you are just dressed up as the character and living all the actions. So I have signed up for my first LARP, which is Beakeline. It's a super big LARP in Canada near the end of the summer, and there are these ginormous battles that look so freaking cool, where you're out there fighting in the front lines, and I want to look as cool as possible while hitting other people with foam sticks. Not only do I want to look cool, I want to win. So I need some armor, because that's actually going to give me like extra hit points in the game. So today I'm going to attempt to make my first ever leather armor chest plate. I mean, have I ever done a leather project up to this size and scale before? No, but like, how hard can it be? Whenever I say that before a project, it normally ends up being really hard. So at first, when I was trying to originally decide how this armor was going to look, at first I was going to make a cool custom design, and then I was going to custom make the pattern. I mean, I've been watching cosplayers make EVA foam armor for years on YouTube. They just wrap themselves up in duct tape and make a pattern that way. So I can't imagine it being much different than that. And I already have experience leatherworking from, all my bookbinding. I'm sure I can figure out how to do that. But as soon as I started to look into it and start breaking it down, very quickly realized I was way out of my depths. I mean, with EVA foam, you can just glue everything together. You can use a ton of Velcro and stuff like that. Leather armor, not so much. The big difference between EVA foam and leather armor is, other than the fact that obviously EVA foam is a much more forgiving material, is the fact that normally for cosplay, you're not going out and actually running around in this armor. Leather armor for LARP has to be durable. I mean, sometimes cosplay armor is just barely being held together with hot glue and a dream, and as soon as you touch it, it can fall apart. At least that's the cosplay armor I've made so far. So you need a stiff, durable armor with a bunch of buckles and rivets and stuff like that. And very quickly I realized I couldn't just jump in and make my own custom pattern without ever doing this before. So I ended up doing a little bit of searching on the interwebs. I found these really cool patterns from Black Raven Armory. And from the website, it says from the patterns and the instructions that anyone of any skill level should be able to make this armor. The pattern I'm going to be using today is called Gun Run? Something like that. And honestly, I just love the way it looks, from the shape of it, to the embossing, to the dragon scales. If I can pull this off, it is going to look so cool. Only problem with buying patterns online is that you have to then print and put everything together yourself, which is always super tedious. But I am super excited, so let's get started with a epic paper cutting montage. Let's go! Once I had all my patterns cut out, I actually did something a little out of character, and that's doing the responsible thing and making a mock-up. I'm not normally someone who does mock-ups because it just feels like I'm doing twice the work when it's probably just going to work out, but the leather is like $200 for the full sheet. I really don't want to mess this up. I'm going to cut out the patterns on $10 craft foam. Yeah, I'm normally measure once, and if it's wrong, I'll keep cutting until it's right kind of girl. But yeah, not risking it this time. Though it did take an extra hour or two, I was able to confirm that this would actually fit me and actually look pretty cool. The only problem is, since I didn't have to make any modifications, this is now supporting the fact that I don't need to make mock-ups in my mind. At least this one can probably be reused as some sort of cosplay armor. Okay, so I had to cut out all the patterns, that's done. Then I had to cut it all out of foam again for the mock-up, and now I have to cut it out again, but out of leather for the actual thing. I haven't even officially started on the project yet, and I'm already so done with these shapes. Okay, I need to actually check if I have enough leather. Good thing I just never throw away my leather scraps. That one's too thin. That's an unfinished project that I'm not going to talk about. This is actually left over from the Percy Jackson and Hunger Games books. And then this is the big boy leather. I'm sure all this squeaky leather noise is fantastic in the mic. This is roll of 8 to 9 ounce leather, meaning that it's going to be stiff enough to actually be like protective armor. Not gonna lie, it'd be expensive. I originally got this one because I went to a leatherworking class where the project was making some shoulder armor. And I will say, on the website, it said it would only be $35 for the material. And then we get there and they're like, oh, but you do need to buy an entire roll. So I ended up spending $200. But also, like, I knew I was going to do a project like this, so it was fine. Just wasn't ready for the price tag. But now it works out. I just have to not mess this up. Okay, so I actually do need to run to the leather store real quickly. I have the leather, but I am missing some hardware. Some tools, rivets, buckles, stuff like that. So while I go and do that, I'm actually going to tell you about another way of which you can go and escape to a fantasy world. One full of love, mysteries, good vibes, and most importantly, pies. Lots and lots of pies. Let me tell you about today's sponsor, Love and Pies. Hold on, we gotta get cozy for the cozy vibes of this game. Love and Pies is a super cute free-to-play mobile game where you play as Amelia, recently divorced single mom who went to go help at her mom's bakery, but turns out bakery burned down and mom gone. I know, super cozy vibes right off the bat. Don't worry, it gets better though. Because with the help of friends and family, you quickly get to work rebuilding and decorating your dream cafe while solving the mystery of who done it. It could be anyone. It could even be your high school sweethearts. Scandal! The gameplay is a fun little matching game where you're combining different ingredients to make cookies, cakes, and of course, pies. And then from the tips that you get to decorate your bakery from a wide variety of furniture and decoration options, so you get to make it exactly how you like it. It has really, really cozy vibes, so it's fun to just sit down and play and relax a little bit. I guess if you're someone who really likes hardcore gaming, you could play it more intense. Hey, I need 2 cookies and an apple pie, pronto! Yes, chef. Love and Pies has a wide cast of inclusive and diverse characters which they celebrate all year round. And this month, they kick off their Pride event, with a special storyline following Robin and Eve, new Pride decorations, and even more adorable baked goods. You can start playing today and get a free bonus gift of 200 energy and 50 gems after playing 3 days of in-game time, which honestly, once you start playing, goes by so fast. You can get all this by using the link in my description. Thank you so much for Love and Pies for sponsoring this video. Now let's go ahead and get back to the project. Now, I'm very lucky and I actually have a Tandy leather store nearby, so I was able to run in and get dyes and tools and all the hardware that I need. I'm very grateful that I can just stop in and don't have to wait for anything to ship, and now I can get started on my project. Let's get shopping! I am only through 3 pieces so far out of, I think, 15, and my hand is already killing me. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be the longest part of the process, at least entertaining. So it's probably just going to be a montage. But maybe I can take this time to tell you a little bit more about the LARP that I'm going to. In a voiceover, because I have to focus on this. So Bigling actually has LARP events going on all year, but the one that I'm going to is called the Grand Bataille, and it is a week-long event. And I talked about like the fighting and stuff earlier, which is definitely a big part of it, but the whole time everyone is there living and acting like they're in a medieval life. I'm actually going with a group called the Voyage North, and they give us a guild to be a part of. We have tents that we're going to be staying in. We can go on quests, or we can just sit and talk around the fire. Everyone I've talked to who has been has basically described it as just a week-long fantasy summer camp. But, you know, for adults. I'm genuinely just so excited because I'm not normally an adventurous person. Like, I had to get my passport for this trip. Also, can we just take a moment to look at how many of these stupid dragon scales I have to cut out? Having to trace and cut all these individual little pieces took me well into the night. I think I actually made it through one of those Game Grump compilations that you're supposed to sleep to, except, you know, I was just cutting leather. Oh, well, That took forever. I think it ended up being 50 pieces of these little like dragon scale things. But now we have all of our pattern pieces. All the tedious stuff should be done, but there's still a lot to get done. So I think priorities should be gluing together the dragon scales because those are going to need a little bit of time to dry. So to do that, I got some contact cement, which luckily left over from all the cosplay stuff, which of course going to be going outside to do because, you know, fun, toxic, flammable, all that stuff should go outside. Man, I hope these scales look cool after all that. Got a little heavy-handed with some glue spots down here, but I started getting a system as I went up and up. Okay, I'm going to press this and make sure that it dries and stays down because I don't want it falling apart because I did so much work on this. Okay, now I just need to do that 3 more times. The tricky thing about contact cement is that you have to have it applied to both sides for it to stick to each other. So I kept on overestimating where I thought the scales would be, creating the glue spots. Hopefully it won't cause that much of a problem though. Finally, these stupid dragon scale pieces are done. Like, they look cool, but they took forever. It's been hours. And if I'm being honest, I got to the last one and kind of realized I could have just carved this into a piece of leather. It's a pretty simple design. Like, it wouldn't have as 3D of an effect, but it would have a pretty close effect. Like, it still would have taken a minute to do, but there's no way it would have taken as long as it took to do these 4 pieces. Having to cut the pattern and then trace it twice as many times and cut all those out and glue all those down. Like, that's almost just a day of work by itself. When I could have just traced it once and then carved it with a swivel knife. Don't they know I have like 20 other projects I want to do before this LARP? The next step I have to do is punch a bunch of holes in the leather for rivets. Good thing I bought this hole punch to make it nice and easy. Oh god, dang it. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, it's still pretty difficult to get through the thick leather. There we go. The only way I could punch a hole was if I put all my body weight on the palm of my hands, and it really hurt, actually. Gosh darn it, this entire project is just my hands suffering. Ow! Sure do love my hobbies. They're so fun and only slightly painful. I tried for a while and quickly realized I was not going to be able to do this for all of the pieces. Well, tried it the traditional way, gave it my all, I really did. It is impossible for me to keep doing this, so time for plan B. Ha! Success! Yeah, it works fine. It's not as clean, but it's going to be covered, so it's fine. You know, normally when I do like medieval projects like this, I try to make it look as like epic as possible using like slow-mo shots of me hammering and carving the leather. And that's normally the general vibe you get from others on YouTube. Yeah, that's just not this project. Okay, all my pieces should be good to go. I got all the straps. I think it is finally time that we can dye the leather. Dye the leather. It's been a long project. I actually have some new tools to try out this time, which I'm very excited about. We're going to be using a lovely dark brown leather stain, but the problem that I've had with using stains in the past is that it normally comes out pretty blotchy, even though I try to be as thorough as possible. It always happens. But the best result I have ever gotten was when I did it using the airbrush. The only problem with the airbrush is it gets absolutely everywhere and you're constantly having to reload it and stuff like that. I basically take this and screw it on top of the bottle, and then it basically turns the leather dye into a spray paint. So I can get really even and smooth coverage really fast because I have a whole lot of leather to dye. I mean, I hope this works because honestly, if I have to do this all by hand, I might cry. We're gonna do this outside because I don't know how far this is going to go and fumes and stuff like that. But y'all should be proud of me. I'm about to dye something. I'm actually gonna remember to put on gloves. Thankfully I was able to get pretty good coats, but it just might need another pass. Right now, I want to be very careful with how much I'm using because I only bought one bottle and one sprayer. So if I run out halfway through the project, it'll be very bad. So I'm just going to try and get a coat on everything first, and then I can go back and fix anything if I have stuff left. That's lovely. The glue just turns orange once I put the dye over it. That is so infuriating that I messed it up on the glue part and didn't even realize it. I really thought the stain would just cover it, but made it so blatantly obvious. I probably spent like 6 hours on these dragon scales and they're messed up. Like, I guess I could argue that it's like, oh, it's a cool weathering effect, but like, I know it wasn't on purpose. I know I messed up. Maybe I'll be able to cover it with like a thicker paint like dye, but it's so annoying. Okay, so while I let my leather pieces dry for a little bit, the pattern that I have does offer some options for decorations, which all of them are like really cool, like Celtic knot designs. And I thought it'd be cool to add a specific symbol related to my Larp character in the collar. The only problem is I haven't practiced my leather carving all that much. I have a tiny bit of experience, but I probably definitely wouldn't be able to put the symbol that I want into the leather. I really don't want to mess it up with leather carving after I've gotten to this point. However, I do have some technology, and I was thinking, because they gave the designs in a PDF, I can take that and edit it how I want and convert it into a 3D printed stamp. That way all I have to do is 3D print the stamp, clamp it down, and I'll have my embossing. Then I can just go in and do the gold hand painting. I've already tried doing it with a smaller stamp before to decent results, and it was pretty easy to do, but it was a lot less complicated and a lot smaller. So the symbol I wanted to add was this compass rose. So in Illustrator, I was able to combine it with the Celtic design that they gave. From there, I was able to export it as an SVG and bring it into Blender. Well, was supposed to be able to bring it into Blender, but you know, I guess it's just being silly and quirky right now and doesn't want to do the thing that's worked several times in the past. That's fantastic. I eventually got the design in 3D, and from there I just had to add a base, and then it was off to the printer. Okay, see you in 10 hours. Please don't fail.
3 hours later.
Huh. Yeah, that's about what I thought would happen. Okay, so it might appear that technology has failed us, but I have second technology. I already have the SVG made of my design, so I can just cut it out of foil on the Cricut. I mean, the positive of making a foil means that the design is going to be really, really shiny and also come out super clean. But I've also done that on so many of my bookbinding projects. I wanted to try something a little bit different. And also you lose that depth that you get from carving or stamping, and it's just the foil sitting on top. But honestly, it still should work. So this compass rose symbol is actually a house crest that I got to help design, and we're going to be using it in the game. So I'm a part of a guild called Nova Vitae, but then we get broken down into houses for specific topics. Like it could be for people who are really into combat or into music, and ours is for cartography and wayfinding. And I got to contribute by using my graphic design skills to make this house crest of a compass rose along with wings to represent the Pegasus that symbolizes our entire guild. I mean, that's one of the things I absolutely love about Larp, is the fact that everyone expresses who their character is, their story, and all that through their costumes. And not only that is like you're still using it as costumes, like you are using this in the game to affect your experience. Like when I'm wearing this, it's going to be my character getting ready for battle. You know, I come from like a cosplay maker sort of background, and there's definitely a ton of overlap in the communities of cosplayers and LARPers. Both share this just love of creating costumes and things to make you feel and look cool. But what I particularly love about the idea of LARP is the fact that it's like what you make is like what you are using in the world, and how you make it and what it looks like help expresses your character. In cosplay, it's just more of reverse engineering of how to take a character design and make it in real life. And then once you make it, honestly, you don't do much with it. You can go to conventions, you can take photo shoots, and that's kind of about it. Meanwhile, I'm going to be running around and fighting in this armor. And I absolutely love that. I haven't even been to my first LARP and I already love it. Or at least the idea of making something for a LARP I love. You know what? I'm going to say something that I never thought I'd ever say. I'm happy my 3D print failed. This was the right answer. This was obviously what it was meant to be. At last, I think it is finally time to start assembling the armor, which honestly, seeing everything in just like separate pieces, it's been kind of hard to imagine what it's like going to be like actually like all put together. I really hope that this all works out because I have put a ton of work into this project. Now, in order to be attaching all the armor pieces together, I'm going to be using these antique brass rivets. I snap both sides together and then I set it in place. Such a simple step, but it takes it from random scraps of leather to, is this a medieval armory? Admittedly, I did end up kind of diverting from the pattern here a little bit. The pattern called for sewing a bunch of the seams together, but that would have added a super long time. So I just opted to add double the rivets and kind of hope for the best. If it doesn't hold up in the long run, I can always go back and add them later. Guys, you're never gonna believe it, but it's actually looking like armor! Ah! Look how good that looks! I honestly can't believe it! Some mistakes were made and some steps were skipped in order to save some time, and it shows. If I have time to fix it before the LARP, I probably will, but for now, it's fine. Last thing I just need to do is to add some straps and buckles so I can actually, you know, wear the thing. But after that, I'll have made armor. Cannot believe that I made this. Honestly, this was definitely one of the more difficult projects that I've taken on in a while. That was just completely an unknown territory. It's definitely not perfect. I'm pretty sure I've lost 2 rivets at this point just from trying it on. For some reason it sticks out weird like that sometimes. We can just hold on. Oh god, I'm sure the people on the battlefield would wait for me to fix that. Right now I just have some more costume sort of armor accessories on, but I'm planning on making some bracers, some shoulder armor. I still have so many projects to do before the LARP, but this makes me feel insanely cool. If you're interested at all in seeing progress on my LARP kit, I'm more than likely going to be posting that on Patreon, which I just started, and you should check out. I'm going to be posting exclusive stuff and also got some files for download if you would enjoy some of those. Also, speaking of, thank you to these lovely patrons for helping me support the channel. Also, yes, that is my mom on my Patreon. Patreon was actually all just ruse for me to get allowance from her again. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!